Also, thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Michael Giannacco, and I wanted to focus on just a couple of things. But before I begin, I wanted to indicate that we had an opportunity here that I don't think we've ever had before, and I'm not sure many other independent oversight groups have had, which is because the shootings that we looked at spanned a 6-year period of time, we were able to gauge the department's response, its investigative response, and its review response over a somewhat lengthy period of time. 6 years is a long time in the life of a police department. And so we were able to see and trace the evolution of reform to the degree that reform had taken hold of the department with regard, of the Bureau with regard to each of the issues that are important to us, which are basically what you want when you have a critical incident such as an officer-involved shooting. You want a thorough, unbiased investigation so that the fact finder can then use that information that's unvarnished, that's pure, that's thorough, and that's unbiased to make important decisions and also to use the incident as a learning experience for the Bureau as a whole. The review process is in some ways more important than the investigative process, because what we have seen is some departments have pretty good investigations, but then they don't take advantage of what is learned from the investigation with regard to issues such as accountability, supervision, training, refining policy, and the like. And so what we were able to do, because of the span of time that we were looking at, and because in 2004 the Bureau was in a different place than it was in 2010, which is when the last shooting occurred that we looked at in this cycle. But we were able to quite candidly and sort of scientifically look at some of the involvement. I'll get to maybe some of the reasons why things have evolved, but I can tell you that in general, while there have been certainly issues, and there do remain issues that we highlight in our report and are featured in our recommendations, that the evolution of the way in which the department does investigate, the Bureau does investigate and review these critical incidents is in a positive and upward direction. That's not always the case. We have done a little bit of time studies in other police agencies, and what we have found is sometimes because of resources, sometimes because of differences in leadership, etc., that some of the better protocols seem to go by the wayside or remain stasis, or even go downhill. That's not what we saw. All the trending was upwards with regard to some of the benchmarks that we see that are important to ensure that the Bureau does take advantage of these incidents as far with regard to accountability and in an effort to make it a better Bureau so that the likelihood of future tragic incidents like officer-involved shootings do not reoccur. That being said,
so if you wouldn't mind, so the statement that says, quote, Portland police failed to learn from past mistakes in officer-involved shooting, review says, which was a local newspaper headline, would you view that seems different than your statement? And I just wanted to give you a chance to comment on the headline versus what you just said.
I appreciate that, Mayor, and I think that to the degree that first of all, you won't see that headline in our report written anywhere. It's not in the narrative because we didn't say that. And I think that what we would say is that, generally speaking, whether it's a park recommendation, whether it's an internal recommendation, whether it's a recommendation that's been sponsored by the leadership of this body or subcommittee, that generally speaking the Bureau does a good job of considering and then ultimately, in most cases, implementing the recommendations. What we have seen, and perhaps one of the reasons for the confusion, if I want to call it that, and maybe why the headline was written the way it was, is that at times this process has become rather attenuated. By that I mean it's taken a while to investigate, it's taken a while to get the review done, and it's taken a while for the recommendations to be developed. Some of them you can't just dream up the next day. It takes some work. So what you have sometimes had is a situation in which there is still a review or investigative process going on with a shooting that occurred in 2006. Then you get another shooting with the same issues in 2007, but the 2006 review hadn't been